The next thing we do when analyzing a company is to try to evaluate the industry that this company is in the context of the relevant country or region. Here, we're typically asking ourselves the following questions. One, why does this industry exist? Here, we're asking, what is it about this country or region that makes this industry and opportunity exist? Two, how big is this industry? So is this a nascent or more established industry? And how has it grown in the past few years? Three, how competitive is this industry? How many players are there in this industry? And is the market big enough to sustain them? And four, how stable is the regulatory environment with respect to this industry? We first try to understand why an industry exists. Typically, there are problems specific to a country or region that make an industry relevant. We try to understand this because we want to make sure that the industry exists to solve a systemic problem and not a fleeting one. For example, in the last 10 years, we've seen the growth of consumer loan providers in emerging markets who give instant loans to individuals through mobile apps. There are a few characteristics of these markets that create the need for this industry. Firstly, there was and still is a large unbanked population in these countries. This exists because banking activity mainly takes place at physical bank branches, and these branches are located in areas with high population density. This is in spite of the fact that majority of people in emerging markets live in low density rural areas. This means that a large population of consumers do not have access to financial services, including credit, because they do not live close to banks. Secondly, because banks were slow to adopt consumer-facing technology, it was difficult for them to underwrite relatively small personal loans in a cost-effective manner. As a result, they focused on larger ticket personal and commercial loans. Both of these meant that there was a large population of consumers that were not being served by traditional banks and did not have access to credit. This led to the emergence of consumer credit providers that reach consumers via mobile phones to offer instant loans and eventually a suite of other banking services. This is an example of real systemic problems giving rise to a large industry in specific parts of the world. Similarly, we try to understand the size and historical growth of an industry in which a company we're considering operates. This is because as debt investors, we want to know that we're investing in an industry that is relatively stable and growing, not one that has a high chance of not being around in the coming years. It is often difficult to estimate the size and growth of an industry, but a good proxy is the size and growth of investment dollars into this industry. Next, we try to understand the competitive landscape. This helps because, one, it serves as a proxy for the size and scale of the industry. Although we don't want a hyper-competitive industry, competition in any industry is a marker for size and maturity, and we like to see some competition in any industry that we're analyzing. And two, it helps us understand the company we're analyzing and how it compares to the competition, specifically what differentiates the company we're analyzing from the competition. Lastly, we try to understand the regulatory environment as it relates to the industry and specific market we are considering. This is to ensure that the regulatory environment is stable and that there are no big changes expected in the near future.